They towed my tractor, filed a lien, and claimed my farm, but I wasn't even in their HOA.
HOA placed the lien on my farm and towed my tractors. Problem is, I'm not even a member. The sun beat down on my 40-acre farm, the air thick with the scent of dry earth and diesel. I'd been up since dawn wrestling with a busted irrigation pump when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. A sleek black SUV pulled up, followed by a tow truck that looked like it meant business. Out stepped Karen, the HOA president from the gated community a mile down the road, her heels clicking like a metronome on my dirt driveway. Clipboard in hand, she marched toward me, her face a mask of righteous fury. I wiped sweat from my brow and braced myself. "Mr. Harlan," she snapped, "your property is in violation of HOA standards. We've placed a lien on your farm and we're repossessing your equipment." She gestured to the tow truck, where a nervous-looking driver was already hooking up my John Deere. I blinked, my wrench nearly slipping from my hand. "Ma'am, I'm not in your HOA. This is my land, free and clear. You've got no jurisdiction here." Her eyes narrowed. "Your unkempt fields and rusty machinery are dragging down our community's property values. The HOA board voted unanimously. Pay the fines or lose your tractors." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Unanimously, lady? I don't even know your board."
"Check your maps. My farm's outside your fancy gates." Karen didn't flinch. She thrust a stack of papers at me, her manicured nails gleaming. "The lien's filed legal on my side. You'll comply or we'll take everything." The tow truck's winch whirred, dragging my tractor up the ramp. My stomach twisted. That tractor wasn't just metal, it was my father's, the one we'd used to plant every crop since I was a kid. I stepped forward, my voice low. "You're stealing my livelihood. You don't get to waltz in here and stealing." She cut in, her voice dripping with scorn. "This is justice. You're blight on our community." The argument escalated, our voices echoing across the empty fields. Neighbors started gathering, folks from town. Not her HOA cronies. Old Mrs. Carter, who'd known my family for decades, hobbled over with her cane, her eyes wide. "Tom, what's this nonsense?" she asked. "She's taken my farm, Mrs. Carter," I said, my jaw tight. "Says I owe her HOA money I never signed up for." Karen spun on her. "Stay out of this, ma'am. This is official business." That's when the twist came. Mrs. Carter, frail as she looked, straightened up and pulled a crumpled envelope from her purse. "Official, you say? Then explain this." She handed me the envelope, her hands trembling but her gaze steady. Inside was a letter from the county, dated a month ago, stating
that the HOA's boundaries had been illegally expanded to include nearby farms meet farm without consent. Mrs. Carter had been fighting it quietly, digging through records with her late husband's old law books. "Karen," I said, holding up the letter, "you knew this was fraud, didn't you?" Her face paled, but she doubled down. "That's irrelevant. Your property's still an eyesore." The tow truck driver, who'd been silent, finally spoke. "Ma'am, I didn't sign up for this. I'm not towing if it's not legal." He unhooked my tractor, the chain clanking to the ground. The crowd murmured, some cheering softly. Karen's composure cracked. "You'll hear from my lawyers," she spat, storming back to her SUV. But the damage was done. The tow truck driver apologized, saying he'd been misled by her paperwork. Mrs. Carter squeezed my arm, her eyes shining with quiet pride.
I thought that was the end of it. The lien was lifted after a tense county hearing where Karen's HOA was exposed for overreaching. But the victory was hollow. The stress had taken its toll. Crops were failing from neglected repairs, and the legal fight drained my savings. Worse, the town was split. Half saw me as a hero standing up to a bully. The other half, swayed by Karen's talk of community standards, whispered I was trouble. One night, I found my barn vandalized. HOA rules spray-painted in red. No proof it was Karen, but I knew. My farm, my home, was slipping away, not by a lien, but by a community fractured by her poison. I sat on my porch, staring at the stars, my father's tractors silent beside me. I'd won the battle, but the war had cost me everything. The next morning, I sold the farm, not to Karen's HOA, but to Mrs. Carter's grandson, who promised to keep it alive. I packed my truck and drove west, leaving behind the only life I'd known. The bitterness lingered, but so did a flicker of hope. Maybe somewhere new, I'd find a place where community meant standing together, not tearing each other apart. What do you think? Was I right to fight, or should I have compromised for peace? Share your thoughts on justice and community conflict.
I may have won the legal battle, but I lost the land that held my history. The crops, the memories, the tractor passed down from my father, all buried beneath stress, division, and betrayal. Karen's HOA didn't just come for my farm. They cracked the spirit of a whole community. But sometimes leaving isn't losing. It's reclaiming peace. I drove west not to escape, but to start again. Somewhere the soil is still honest. Somewhere people still stand up for neighbors, not bylaws. And maybe, just maybe, justice means knowing when to fight and when to walk away.